pirates, cowboys, governesses, lurking murderers, and errant knights. This is what I played in the month of September. I'm not too dramatic. Not me. I think I was listening to Broadway songs maybe before I was even listening to Bach or Beethoven, definitely before I started playing harp. My parents would put on the old movie adaptations of Sound of Music or Fiddler on the Roof or The King and I. So I grew up with this taste for a song that's also a story. I'm sure none of you would consider that I was too dramatic. But it's not just me. I've noticed that from the Alzheimer's and therapy settings to some of my favorite weddings, people love including musical theater. So in the month of September, we did Broadway. I started this month's program. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye. It's not just true of Oklahoma. I live in Indiana. The corn is very high. Oklahoma is the first musical by legendary complimentary writers Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein, the first time they teamed up as a duo. 20 years later, they released their last musical together, The Sound of Music. Considering how often I get requests to play music by Rodgers and Hammerstein, I think it's safe to say that they are some of our favorite things. This is the most requested musical I ever get. I'm always asked to play Edelweiss, and I've done my own versions of the other favorites, the Sound of Music title theme, and a few of my favorite things. My first arrangements, and to this day some of my favorite, are actually from the fake books, the Easy Broadway fake book and the Big Broadway fake book. A fake book is a version that just has the melody line with a few key chords. This is where I started playing Broadway. There are several famous arrangements of songs like Edelweiss, but I've come up with my own. There are also some good harp arrangements of Broadway classics, like this Rodgers and Hammerstein one by Deborah, Friou, one of my favorite arrangers. But since the first time I played most of these, I played it straight from the lead sheet, I still prefer the lead sheet. We have to throw some love to Andrew Lloyd Webber with Memory from Cats. If anyone knows tricks to get cats in my neighborhood to sing that harmoniously, please leave them in the comments. These songs really do work into our memories. I noticed as I was packing up and leaving from these programs, more than any other genre I've done, I would still hear some of my Alzheimer's or memory care patients humming the tunes as I was leaving. Now, I don't get to go to a staged version of musicals very often. I've been in a couple and I've gone to a couple, but most of my experience with musicals was the great film adaptations. In fact, there was a run of movie history when almost all major Oscar winners were also musical adaptations. Back to back, we got Oliver, My Fair Lady, and The Sound of Music. Whatever you think of Oliver as a film, the music is so much fun. The adaptation of Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens features a song in the middle where the young orphan Oliver is rescued by his grandfather and he gets to spend one perfect day. Who will buy? It is a haunting choral overlap that's in sharp contrast to the rest of the music. Also, it's in minor key and I am major on the minors. Horrifyingly beautiful song. Because here is a kid so poor, so trapped in the cycle, that his first thought when confronted with a beautiful natural scene is, who can buy the sunshine? Yikes. The other one on that list was My Fair Lady. I love this musical, not just because it stars Audrey Hepburn in the film adaptation. I love it because it's a whole musical about practicing. My Fair Lady starts with a character who isn't really good at anything. She's not skilled, she's not talented, but she gets a teacher, a subsidized place to study, and long periods of practice. And she gets really, really good. I am a full-time professional musician. People see that I play the harp. You're so talented. I am not talented. I am not any more talented than any of my friends. In fact, a little bit less. What I have is not natural talent. What I have is 20 years of practice. I have been playing the harp since I was 9 years old. I took private lessons from a teacher for 10 years. I practiced 2 hours a day for most of my studies and play full time. If I do not sound good at this point, I should re-examine my life choices. So when people say, oh, you're talented, what I want to tell them, just read this somewhere, that wonderful Penn and Teller quote, magic is just being willing to put more time into something than anyone else would consider reasonable. My career is not rational or reasonable, but I have put a lot of time into it. For My Fair Lady, I did a medley of a couple of the favorites, On the Street Where You Live, Wouldn't It Be Lovely, and I Could Have Danced All Night. The first time I played I Could Have Danced All Night, I remember thinking, that's weird, something's missing. And in a lot of styles of music, not just Broadway, but pop songs, rock songs, anything that has a little bit of an instrumental solo or a chorus backup, there are often motifs, little bits of a melody that are woven into not the main vocal line, not the main melody. But because they're so iconic to the production, if they're not included, it feels missing or hollow. A lot of these fake books only include the main vocal line, so there are these little snatches of sound that I just went, there's something that should be here. I highly encourage anyone and everyone to learn how to play out of a fake book, but just beware, it may not have all of the important parts, the iconic parts. Depending on the age of my audience, I also alternate a few of the old standards from like the 50s, things like Some Enchanted Evening from South Pacific, with musicals from a little bit later, favorites like Godspell. And while I focus on a lot of classic musicals, like from the 50s through 70s for my memory care therapy settings, I've noticed recently there are a lot of couples getting married that are including more musical theater in their special day. This year alone, I have played As Long as You're Mine from Wicked, Wedding Song from Hadestown, and Would You Fall in Love with Me Again from the new musical Epic by Jorge Rivera-Herrans that just came out in 2024. It was so much fun to get to play these favorite love songs for these couples, a real meeting of musical minds. Also, if you haven't heard Epic yet, it's a new musical based on a video game style adaptation through Homer's Odyssey. It rocks. I also played some non-musical weddings in the month of September, but with very specific artists. I had one bride who wanted a lot of Hosier, the Irish rock and roller, and another one who wanted a lot of Lorena McKinnon, the Celtic harpist and folk singer. You know it's going to be a good wedding when they want Irish on the harp. I've gotten to take my harp a lot of places. I've taken it upstairs, downstairs, on the balconies of all sorts of buildings. I even put it on the back of a golf cart and went out to the back 40 of a golf course. But even my Petite pedal harp is 65 pounds. I'm going to need something a lot more than tradition to balance this puppy on a roof. We'll leave that to the fiddle players. But I did play a lot of favorites from Fiddler on the Roof, including Sabbath Prayer and Sunrise Sunset. You'll notice the theme, minor, melancholy. Now, the real secret reason why I am playing Broadway this month is I've gotten so many requests recently to play Phantom of the Opera. So, if Phantom is what people want, Phantom is what we will do. Now, there are harp arrangements of Phantom of the Opera. There's a famous book by Sylvia Woods. I usually play it off the piano adaptations though, because I want to get all of the chromatics in. For this, I put together a medley of the main theme, Phantom, Think of Me, Music of the Night, and All I Ask of You. And all I ask of you is that you don't fall asleep while I play Music of the Night. I know the harp is incredibly soothing. Resist! I could never pick a favorite, but if I could only play you one Broadway song, it would be The Impossible Dream from The Man of La Mancha. Now, my dream was never to be on Broadway. I didn't want to move to the city and play on a stage. That was never the dream. For me, the dream was always just to play harp. But when I was 9, that felt kind of impossible. Harps are rare and expensive, and where do you even find a teacher? But I am so grateful that I had parents who listened to me. We were able to find a teacher locally. I was able to buy a harp secondhand from another family. I was able to start little by little, piece by piece, practice session by practice session, gaining a little foothold, starting to live out an impossible dream. And because I have a community, both in real life and online, that enjoys and appreciates music, I get to live out an impossible dream. and the world will be better for this. To love when your heart is too weary, to reach the unreachable stars. So that's what I played in the month of September. I know any selection of musical theater songs is going to be incomplete. If I played all the good Broadway music, we would be here for 2 months. Leave a comment down below with what you've been listening to or what you want to hear me play next time. And whether you have a stage and a spotlight or a back room and a CD player, may all your days be filled with great music.